Effortlessly floating. This is the song we know. It's not a new dance. If the way was a thing that could be lost or gained by the actions of men, it would have been lost long ago. So come along the old familiar path with me and remember, effortlessly floating on a river of liquid life, so sure in its movement that it seems still, so calm in its knowledge that it seems to be sleeping. And because it is a still and sleeping river that you float upon, effortlessly, it is irresistible. And because it is an irresistible river of liquid light and information that you float upon, effortlessly, it is sleeping. 4, 3, 2. It is an irresistible river because there is nothing to resist it. All is the river of light. There is nothing to resist it because it is irresistible. All is the river of light. And you float on the river of light effortlessly. And you realize that you aren't all that terribly important in the floating. It's the floating that is preeminent. You could make a show of resisting the irresistible and cause all kinds of bother. But floating is just floating. Floating effortlessly. And you begin to realize that you aren't all that terribly responsible for where you end up. You could strain and swim across the current or against the current if you wanted. But the current of the universe is infinite in its strength. And even a metaphysical dolphin swimming against the current would still be moving downstream. So why bother? Floating is just floating. Floating effortlessly. And you begin to become less important to yourself as you decide not to cause a fuss. And floating effortlessly becomes the focus. And you begin to relax to the point of melting as you decide to allow the current to carry you wherever it's going. And floating effortlessly is the focus. Floating effortlessly. Just floating. And you get smaller and softer and calmer. And floating gets bigger. Floating. Just floating. And you aren't all that solid anymore. And you're pleased to find that that's okay. And floating effortlessly is real. Floating just now. And you are see-through. And floating effortlessly is real. Floating right here. And you begin to forget who you thought you were. And floating effortlessly is floating effortlessly. And you've forgotten why you cared. And floating effortlessly is all there is. And floating effortlessly is. Floating effortlessly. Floating. 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 Floating.